National PTA, right? This is how we differ from a PTO. PTO or foundation raises funds for that school. If you have a foundation across the city, yes, it raises funds for the district. But what about across the state? Where is your voice there? You don't get it through a PTO, but you do get it through PTA. So let me talk to you a little bit about what we've been doing on that this year. Okay, at the beginning of February, I brought 32 people, including 7 high school students, up to Sacramento for the CAPTA LegCon 2025. I don't think we brought anybody from Temple City. I'd like to see that change in future years. But, so we met with Senator Perez, who's new to Sacramento. She was very interested in meeting us. We were very interested in meeting with her because she replaced Senator Portantino, who was a huge advocate for PTA and education in general. We also met with the staff of 2 other senators and 5 assembly members, all of whom were eager to hear from us. We talked with them about things like need for counselors and mental health counselors in particular in high schools. Talk about needing funds to rebuild schools in districts that are hit by wildfires. We talked, in particular, the high school students were concerned about school safety on campuses. Some of them particularly about the possibility of ICE raids. We wanted, the thing I was pushing on was we wanted to make sure that Prop 98 funding, a full Prop 98 funding was restored for this year. Does everybody know what Prop 98 is? Okay, good. I like talking to council audiences where people have that kind of knowledge. Okay. So many of the things we talked about have already made it into bills that have been introduced into the legislature. I mean, the bills are headed for committees and things like that, but we can see them already that there are bills about some of these things. 2 weeks ago, unbelievable, it was only 2 weeks ago, we did the same thing at the national level. We took 8 people from 1st District and joined by another couple of dozen across California, and we were the California State delegation to National Legislation Conference. We did it virtually, so we're all on our screens, as opposed to flying to DC. We're going to fly to DC next year. So we're going to try to get in our representatives' faces. All right. Now so across the state, we had meetings scheduled with both of our senators and with 20 of our representatives. Okay, with the group, like I say, about 2 dozen, maybe 3 dozen of us, parceled into smaller groups to meet with the representatives. So I met with my representatives, Laura Friedman, okay? And to be fair, I didn't meet with any of the representatives, I met with their staffs, right? Because this was the same week as the State of the Union address, so they didn't have time for us in any way. But we met with their staff, which is often better. But I met with my representative. I met with Gil Cisneros, who's that way from you guys, and from several others across the state because we were backing each other up. So in every one of these meetings, we had somebody who was a constituent of that representative, right? And then several other people who were working with them, so we all had our talking points down. Your representative is Judy Chu, is that right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So I didn't meet with her or her office, but a number of people from 1st District were her constituents, so that was the group that went with her. With statewide, we decided we had 4 goals. National had about 16. We decided we couldn't cover all of those in these meetings, so we picked 4. Okay, one of them was universal school meals. Of course, we have that in California, right? And we know it works. There's a push, can we get this nationally? Can we just get funding so the kids aren't hungry, right? It seems like a no-brainer, but everybody will ask, where's the money? It's like, well, do you want the kids to learn or not, right? So the next one was protecting schools at sensitive locations. This came straight out of our students talking about, being uneasy on campus, not knowing what was going to happen, particularly our immigrant populations. We also, the one I was taking the point on, was opposing voucher plans. And I'll have more to say about that later, but PTA is anti-voucher in every conceivable way. And we also wanted to let our legislators know at the federal level that we really want to defend the Department of Education. We don't like the idea that it should go away. It's clear to all of us that if the department goes away, that all our special education funding will go away. And what are we going to do? Right? Are we going to somehow make up for that money? Are we just going to not have special education? Are we just not going to have IEP plans? Right? I don't know. But both in Sacramento and in DC, well, a little bit less in Sacramento than DC, we try to talk to legislators of both parties, right? Like I say, a little less in Sacramento because it's hard to find Republicans from around here in Sacramento. But we were able to talk to Republicans from California and DC and let them know of our concerns, right? Because the welfare of kids is not a partisan issue, right? We want our kids to learn, we want our kids to be protected. We just want the good for kids. All right, so that was a busy 6 weeks for me, right? But the important thing there is that is, well, that was my job and that was sort of the peak of my year. Advocacy never stops. Right now, the legislation team up in Sacramento is tracking bills. Okay, as I said, some of them are, some of the things we were talking about in LegCons, because when we go to Sacramento and talk to legislators and their staffs, they actually listen to PTA, right? We come with a large group. When you descend on a legislator's office with 20 people, they go, oh, these people are concerned. We ought to think about this. So, but right now, the legislation team is tracking 28 issues in the legislature, right, in the Assembly or the Senate, okay? And they're supporting 22, some of which are the kinds of things we talked about to the legislators. And they're opposing 6. 6 is kind of high for this time of the legislative calendar, right? It's usually 1 or 2 we can find, but 6 is a lot. And the reason there's 6 is because of this thing that is my bugbear, which is voucher plans. Okay? 3 of the 6 are opposition to vouchers because a voucher plan has been introduced into the Assembly, into the Senate, and through the Senate as a potential constitutional amendment. So it turns out that, I didn't know this, that our state constitution prohibits the kind of voucher plan they want to put in, so they'd have to change the constitution and then pass a law, which seems kind of far-fetched in California, but it doesn't stop people from trying. All right, so if you'll permit me, I'll go on a little bit about vouchers and tell you why PTA is so opposed to them. The sort of classic voucher plan kind of thing is to say, oh, you know what, we spend $5,000 on a student, so here, you're a student, here is your slip that says you can take that $5,000 to go to any school you want. If it's public or private or whatever, or you want to take it for homeschool, you get the money, you just go with it. That people are always opposed to that. That's been voted down over decades. People are like, no, you have no transparency and all of that. Right now, the kind of plan that people are pushing is, instead of giving out money, let's just give people tax credits. So somebody who wants to send their kid to a private school, they get to contribute money to a scholarship fund, and then the scholarship fund writes a check for that student to the school in question, and the persons who gave the money to the scholarship fund get to write it off as a charitable deduction. And so somehow that doesn't take money out of the public schools, it takes money out of taxes, which is of course the same thing. The problem with all of these plans is that they bill themselves as being about school choice. They're not about school choice. School choice would be the first plan where your kid got to take the slip with the money to any school they wanted to go to. Instead, we've got PTA is in favor of school choice when school choice means you get to choose what district your kid goes to. You get to choose which school in the district they go to. You get to choose a charter school or a magnet school, right? All of them are public schools, and you get to choose. We're for that, and of course we get to do that here in California. What we are not in favor of is you saying, oh, I want to go to that private school, and I want to use money from the public treasury to do it. Because the private schools don't play by the same rules, right? Private schools don't have to take kids with IEPs. Private schools don't send their kids through CASP testing. They're not, they don't have to, especially with religious schools, right? They don't have to take kids of more than one faith. The choice in there is the private schools get to choose, not the student. You can apply, but if they don't take you, you don't have choice. And the other thing, this was my point when talking to the people in Washington, was that where these plans are being tried, and they're springing up in states all across the country, where they're being tried, they're financial disasters, fiscal disasters. Arizona has one of these plans on the books, and last year it opened a $1.4 billion hole in its budget, because it turns out that when you give vouchers, when you offer vouchers to kids, and therefore, you're trying to get students to leave or to transfer out of public schools into private schools and give them the money to do that. But they always write these things when it's just a tax credit. It's like there are no rules associated with it. You just get to take a tax credit if you make a contribution. And all the kids currently in private schools sign up for those vouchers. In Arizona, 73% of the kids now receiving these tax credits never were enrolled in public school, right? So only a few students left the public school to go to the private schools, and the public schools are left having to still educate all the number of students they had. It's just, boom, the state is now required to fund this group of students it never had to do before. It gets worse. 73% is a lot, but in Arkansas, 95% of the students were never in public schools. And like Arizona opened a big budget hole, Arkansas didn't know what to do and they had to raid their state reserves, okay, because it was the end of the budget year. They didn't have the money, and now they're going forward going, where are we going to raise that money? It's not clear. They thought, in both cases, that money spent on public education was going to go down because the students were going to leave. All right? That doesn't make a lot of sense. You've got schools in Temple City where you lose 2 kids from each class. Doesn't drop the number of classes, doesn't let you fire a teacher, right? Where do you save the money? You don't. These plans don't make sense. But even worse, when you're actually draining the public treasury, right? Now you've got, you not only did you not lower the cost of public education, but you're now adding students effectively to the public education pool. So, all right, well, now you understand, that's my bug. So, what I really want to say is that PTA is about advocacy, right? That's what differentiates us from something like a PTO. And at a unit level, it's hard to see that advocacy happen, right? Yes, you're a parent, you're going to see your teacher, that is advocacy, right? You're your unit president and you talk to your principal, that's definitely advocacy. When the person is on your board and you talk about what do we need to make the school better, that's advocacy. You're pulling together the parent community, you're funding new canopies for the tables because that's what the students need. That's advocacy. You're able to see the school needs, you're able to push on them. It's harder to see advocacy at higher levels, right? When we're talking about advocacy to school districts, council district is where that happens. Advocacy at the state level, of course, that's CAPTA in Sacramento, or nationally in DC. It's this kind of level where we really get this kind of advocacy happen, and this is where we need it now, right? Education in America is under attack, and it's organizations like National PTA and CAPTA that are pushing back and trying to take dollars away from our public schools. So, I hope that, it's one of First District's goals to have somebody from every PTA council come to LegCon, right? I want to see somebody from this group come next year. Now, I won't be Leg VP next year because I'm turned out, but I still want to go, right? So, I hope to see one of you up in Sacramento next February. Thank you. Are there any questions? I can talk about legislation if you want. I have this 5-page thing of measures that the state is taking a position on. I'm happy to talk with you.
If anyone has any questions, David will be here after.
But yes, I will be here afterwards.
Thank you so much, David.
Thank you.